did was I just patted it with some napkins to round the bottom out and taped it on there. And then what I do is I just take coffee filters from the kitchen, and you're just going to start to wrap the coffee filter around your bowl. And then you just grab another one, and you're just going to tape the coffee filters together, and making sure that you're not taping them to the bowl, right? Because we want this to lift off in the end. And it doesn't have to be at all precise, because you're just going to cover this with clay. And yes, it's probably going to make a little bit of an impression. This is a napkin that I'm just going to fold because I ran out of coffee filters. So you can kind of just find anything that is a paper product that's easily manipulated and put it over top of your bowl shape. Like that, okay? Or you can use a balloon, and I've done both today. If you're going to use the coffee filter / napkin, you're going to continue to tape this inside so it stays connected to your bowl. And I'm not going to waste time doing that. I'm just going to, that's how I keep the clay from sticking. A lot of people and other like Pam and things like that, but I found that if you don't get an even coating, it's almost impossible to get an even coating. Then you're going to have some place that sticks and tears. And so if you've mastered that, then go ahead and just use that. But this seems easiest to me, so that's generally how I go ahead and make my bowl unstickable. Okay, let me start and show you the shapes that I made with this molded and folded. So this is one shape. And when I made this, I was talking to my group of students from Art Alliance, and I was kind of asking them what they thought about the raw look. And they liked it, so I left it because I like it too. I did add a little foot on the bottom. You can see the foot. But then I started thinking there's people out there that are a little bit like me when I carve, so I'm a little OCD and it needs to be exactly perfect. So I went ahead and made a bowl that was a little bit more not perfected, but just a little bit more streamlined. I put a little rim on the top, and I put a foot on the bottom. Okay, so there's an option to go really fast and funky with a raw shape. And then there's the option to really fuss and fuss and fuss and make this look like you almost threw it off the wheel. Now, if you could hold this, you would see that it doesn't look like you made it on the wheel. But you can get pretty close if you want to fuss. So we'll put those two aside. And I'm going to go ahead and use a balloon right now because they're pretty and fun, and I like to pop them. So I'm gonna start to mold. So what you're gonna need to do is pull a slab or roll out a slab. I know Patrick did a demo last week on slab making at home, and this is my slab. You can see how loose it is. It's very loose. I pretty much will roll out my slab, and I will not even let it rest. I'll just pick it right back up off my board, and it should be pretty loose. And then I'm just going to stand, you're going to hear a drop. My board just dropped on the floor. I'm going to stand up over this balloon or bowl, and I'm going to try to put it directly in the middle. Now, that is kind of hard to do. What I'm doing is I'm pulling down. Can you see that I'm pulling down on the sides here? Because I want to make sure that the rim is all the way around the balloon, and this one's not. So I'm shifting it over to the left just a little bit, and I'm pulling these down in 4 sections. Do y'all see that? Let me lift this up. So it kind of looks like that. Do y'all see that? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to really start pressing these 4 sections down, okay? And we're going to have these little wings that come out on the sides, okay? And I'm really pressing this into the balloon. And if you were doing it on the bowl, you would be pressing into that filter or napkin, okay? And once you feel like it's pretty flat, we're going to start to cut a dart in these 4 wings right here. Okay, so I'm going to open the wings up just a little bit so I can cut a dart. Now, are y'all able to see all that? I hope you are. Okay, I'm going to bring this a little closer to you. So when I start to cut a dart, I'd like to go a little bit slow and methodical, because if you overcut, you can go back for sure, but it's easier just to take little bits off at a time instead of taking a whole bunch off at a time. Okay, so I'm just going to start to cut, and I'm just using a needle tool. If you don't have a needle tool at home, you can use a straight pen or an X-Acto knife. I think either one of those would work really well. Okay, so I'm going to start to cut. I know it's hard to see, but I'm going to cut on this side. You'll see when I pull the triangle off. Okay, now that's my first dart. Okay, can y'all see that? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to fold this over right now and look. See how much extra clay there is there? And that's going to make it bulky. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit wider dart here. Okay, like that. Now I'm going to press that in and see the fold over here. It's that much fold over. And I'm going to pull that off, because the less bulk, the better, especially if you're looking towards making a more perfect bowl versus the raw look. You're going to want less bulk because it's easier to blend all that stuff together. Okay, so we're going to, and you're going to have this little knob here. Can y'all see that knob? You're going to have 4 knobs. We'll take care of it, so don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and push this together like that. Okay, and that's going to keep that together. Now, I'm not totally sticking it together. If I need to adjust it later, I can, but I just want it to hold there for a second for me while I cut these other darts. And I'm going to cut these 4 darts here. Okay, and we'll just do this again. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this little bit off there, and I'm just going to go ahead and push that together. And again, I have this little knot right here. Okay, and we've got the third one. Okay, and that's quite a bit that I need to take off there. So we got this one. We're going to stick this together like that. Okay, very loose. You know, it's a very loose way to work. But if you don't have a wheel at home, it's a nice way to make a bowl. I also made a mug like this, and I did the mug over a water bottle. Okay, that's the 4th one. And all of mine are going in the same direction. Like, I folded right over left each time. But if you wanted to do right over left and left over right, it's fine. We're going to smooth all this down. But on the inside, it'll look different. If you leave it raw, it'll look different on the inside, okay? So I went in all the same direction. Now, I'm going to spin this around, and I want you to notice the knobs, okay? There's one that is super big, this one right here. I'm going to take that out because it's just going to be too bulky for us to mess with. So I just cut that out, and I'm just going to pull that over like that. And that's a lot littler knob there. Okay, now this clay is this one's a little bit big too, so I'm just going to cut a little bit out of there like that. And then I'm just going to push it in and just pull it over. So it's a very loose and fast way to work, which is kind of fun. If you can just let yourself go a little bit and not expect too much out of the piece, you can do something really fun. So the tool that I'm using, I don't know if y'all can see it, this is what is called a dental spatula. You can order these off of eBay for $1 something a piece. And this is what I build most of my really large pieces with. I know it seems funny because it's so small, but it works really well. And then I was thinking about those people at home that didn't have anything, everything's still at the studio, and maybe wouldn't have a rib or any way to make a rib. So I started thinking about what could be a rib. This is a Pyrex Tupperware top, and it's the best rib. I'm serious. I may not ever go back. So I'm going to stand up so I hope y'all can see. Let's see. So you're just going to take your rib and start to pull that clay over. Now, if you go through, I didn't, but let's pretend like I went through as I was pulling over because the clay's so wet. Just take a little piece of clay, make a little circle, and just slap that sucker right on there, okay? And then you're just going to smooth it in. So just allow yourself to work pretty fast. Everything is fixable. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this over. See how fast this little Pyrex lid is? I mean, it works really well. Now, once it gets wet, it gets sticky, so you have to be careful about that. But up until it gets super wet, and I just kind of rotate it around so it's on a dry place. Okay. All right, now I've gotten everything pulled together so it's seamed. The seams are all together and sturdy. And now I'm going to go back with my little dental spatula here, and I'm going to start to smooth. Now I'm not going to fuss too much because I don't want to waste time doing that. Okay. So I'm just going to fuss a little just to smooth. You can always fuss as much as you want. At this point, once you get the seams all taken care of, you can stop and put your piece in front of the fan or go inside and have a sandwich, and then come back out and just let it set up for a little bit so it's not quite so wet to work with. I tend to just go through the process all at once because I like to push the clay, and I like when the clay pushes back. And so it has its own little personality when it has its little quirks. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all this loose clay off here, because what this does, if it hangs around too much, it's going to want to pull your seams up. So if you just go ahead and get rid of it, just put it aside. I always have a little pile next to me on a piece of plastic so I can reuse my clay. Okay, there. And you can kind of start to pull this down, okay? I'm watching my hands, make sure y'all can see, okay? You can just pull this down. Now, it's going to ripple on you a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to take care of the rim in a little bit. So just going to pull this down. Now, I'm going to set this guy, well, hold on. I'm going to put a foot on this guy before I set it aside. Like I said, if you want to go inside at this point and just have a sandwich or let it sit in front of the fan for 10 minutes, it would be good. And sometimes I do that. So let's see. Let's make this lower if I can. I want y'all to be able to see. Well, it's not going to be lower. Come on, little balloon. All right, we're just going to do it on here. I hope y'all can see. Okay, so I'm going to just take my little, these are 5 toothpicks tied together with dental floss. And that's my little scratching tool. And I'm just going to make a nice little scored area on the top here. Now, the clay's so wet, I don't need water, but if you did go inside and leave this for a little bit, then you would go ahead and use a little bit of water on here. Just like that. Just a little bit. You don't need a lot. Okay. And I'm just going to make a snake. Now, I know that Pat has that crazy little tool that makes feet for bowls, and I haven't gotten one yet, so I still am just making a snake really fast. But I'm going to roll it out. I'm going to move this for just a second. I'm going to roll it out on a board, and that's not normally what I do, but with these feet, I like them to be pretty nice, and I want them to be pretty even so that the pot doesn't sit lopsided. So I roll out, and then I'm going to make sure it's pretty even across. It's pretty even. And I'm just going to flatten it with the side of my hand, like a little karate chop all the way down. And I'm pulling it as I'm karate chopping it so it doesn't quite stick to the board. There. Okay. And then I'm going to slam it down that way. And then I'm going to turn it over and slam it down that way. So I have a nice, even foot. Okay. And I'm just going to move this over here for a sec and bring the balloon back. Okay, now everybody would ask me, do I need to score one side of this snake? And my answer is, depends on how wet your clay is. But if you're wondering, then just go ahead and score it. If you've added some water to the bowl, though, I wouldn't add water to the snake. Just one, okay? And we're going to start to put this on. So just putting it all the way around. Okay, now when I get to this seam, I'm going to move this a little closer, okay? Let me see if I can move this a little closer. Is that better there? Okay. Okay, so when I get to this seam, see how it's a crossover? I'm going to cut, and if y'all take LT's class, he probably has shown you this because I learned this from him. You're going to cut at a diagonal for the snake. Can y'all see that? Okay, and then on this one, you're going to cut the opposite diagonal. So they're just going to fit perfectly together like that. Do y'all see that? And it makes it stronger than just doing directly up and down. I don't know why. You can ask LT or Patrick. I'm sure they know. But I don't know why it makes it stronger. But I can tell a difference. So that's the way I do joining of coils that go on a foot, or when you're throwing and you're adding a coil, I attach it that way, and it tends to work and not pull apart quite as much. Okay, and then I'm just going to take this little rib. It's a little wooden tool. I think y'all probably seen these before, and I'm just going to start to pull this clay down. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, and then I'm going to do that on the inside. Again, I'm not going to waste time doing that. Y'all have probably all seen that before. So, like in the cooking shows, this guy's going to go away. Yep. And then this guy is going to come back. So this is another balloon. And if you don't, so what I put my balloon on is a chuck, and we have those in the studio. You may not have a chuck at home. Most people wouldn't. And so I just used a mug. So you can just see this is just my little mug. Okay. So now it's time. It's been setting up. I made this morning when I got back, and it's been setting up. And so you can see it's pretty stiff. I wouldn't say leather hard yet. It's close at the edges. You know how the edges always dry faster. This part's pretty mushy. You can see that. Okay, so I'm going to take this off, and there's my balloon. And this is the fun part. I get to pop the balloon, and I tend to scream, so hopefully I won't. I didn't. Good. Okay, so do you see I just squished it? So you got to be careful when you pick this up. So if you look inside, you can see the join. See those joins? Okay, let me just, I hope y'all can see this better than I can. I see myself as a tiny little block, and so I can't see what y'all are seeing. Okay, so you've got your joins in there. Now, this is the moment when I asked the girls, I said, well, what do y'all think? Because the rim on this bowl was super uneven, and it was kind of just like that, and I really liked it. And the inside, I liked the way the folds looked. It was very organic, and we just left it like that. Now, this one, I'm not as, okay, I'm going to move this back so you can see the foot as well. I'm not as, well, I don't know. I usually sit down and spin it and just see. It's a little lopsided, right? Can y'all see that? You can see the wonky in it. It's not bad, but it's not as organic as the last one. This one, so I guess what I would say is I would probably try to work on it a little bit. The folds are okay inside. They tend to stand up a little bit. So I think I might want to smooth them down. So I'm going to take my little Pyrex dish again, and I'm going to go in there and see if I can smooth these out a little bit, so that when you put something in there to eat, you wouldn't be clanking your fork against it as you were eating your food. I'm going to take my rib, and the ones that are sticking out, I'm just kind of easing them back in. Notice I'm using my hand out on the outside and the tool on the inside. So my hand is the support system as I'm doing this. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Has anyone found a good alternative to a homemade banding wheel other than a Lazy Susan, but something that you can use that allows that free spinning of your pot?
No, I mean, I think I know you can get the tools to make a Lazy Susan at Lowe's. And you could make something small like this little bat. You could make something small and stick that underneath it, but you would actually still have to go to the hardware store. Unless you could go on Amazon and see, you might be able to get that toolkit on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
I can look it up when I get done. Okay. That's a good question, because
yeah,
it's hard to make hand-built stuff without a banding wheel, because you're constantly rotating it. So this does really, really help. But I would go on Amazon and look for that kit, because I bet it's on there. You can find anything on Amazon or eBay. Okay. Who's the person at Potters of the Piedmont that makes those clay Lazy Susans? Do y'all know? Oh, well, unmute yourself.
Karen, it's Karen Lewitt.
Karen Lewitt?
Yeah.
Maybe contact her and see what she says. I bet she would love to chat about it. And if you do find out, post on Art Alliance and share it with all of us. That would be great. Okay, so again, I'm just going to take a look at this. And I probably at this point would opt to, there's the inside smoothed out. I'll probably opt to take a sponge and just start to go over my rim with my, it's not dry sponge. It's kind of I just squeezed it out once. So it's got some liquid to it. You can see the shininess of my fingers. And I'm just kind of pulling this over. And quickly, because I want the clay to speak and do something different than what it's doing right now. Because if I'm going to choose to stay raw, I want it to kind of pull in one direction or just change its shape a little bit on its own with me pressing it to do it, just so it gets a little bit more organic feel to it. And you can start hacking this thing apart. Now, I did that the other day. I took one and the rim was pretty even, and I wasn't as pleased with the organicness of it. So I started to cut into it. And then it's like cutting your own hair, you know. The bowl doesn't exist anymore. Cut it too much. And so now I'm smoothing the seams on the inside. Okay, and I'm leaving a little bit of seam on the upper part. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to take a look at this. Now, this is something that you could carve if you wanted to. So you have to think about your seams, though, if you're going to carve. And I'm liking that pretty okay as a raw piece. Now, what if you don't want to do raw and you want something that is more, for lack of a better word, a wheel thrown look. Okay, so we're going to put this one aside. And then I made this one on a bowl. And I put it, another thing that I use to work as a chuck is a ball jar. Okay, and so this is on a bowl. And I just pulled it off. Here's my coffee filters and all that. Okay, and again, this one's pretty wet. Okay, so it's pretty wet. The seams are better inside this one, which is great for us because we don't want those seams if we're going to try to make this look like it was wheel thrown. This would have been the better one to choose to be organic, I tell you what. But we're going to go with it. Okay, so I'm going to take my little Pyrex guy. And again, with my hand on the outside, I'm going to start pulling the seams together gently because we don't want to disrupt the shape on this one as much as we did the other one, because we do want it to look like it came off the wheel and has a better shape to it. So we don't want to disrupt the bowl shape that came from this mold that we made from a kitchen bowl. Okay, and so now I'm going to start to kind of gently press the clay up. So I'm looking for that nice little round part in the bottom. Good. Okay, now I'm going to take this, instead of using my needle tool, I'm going to take an X-Acto knife. I try to, when I'm doing cutting like this, where it's not on the wheel and it's on a banding wheel, your hand, because you're breathing, goes up and down. And so you have to take a deep breath and hold your breath and cut with something really, really sharp. So I'm using my X-Acto knife. And then I'm going to try to look at this and see where I want to cut. And I think I'm going to cut about this much off, because if you look all the way around, the lowest point is this point right here, and I want to go about a half an inch underneath that low point, just in case I breathe and I go up and down, okay? So, all right, I'm going to take a deep breath and cut. Okay. That's pretty good. There's a spot right here that's off a little bit. But see, I'm starting to go lower, and I just made a little bit of a mess. All right, let me see if I can kind of gently get that back. Now, if you stick your hand inside of there and you're using an X-Acto knife, be careful, okay? Because I'm watching the inside as I'm doing this. I don't want y'all to cut your hands up. Okay. Now, it's not perfect, and I can see the difference. I'm pulling up here just to get it to come up just a little bit. But what's going to happen is we're going to put this rim on, right? So any unevenness that you put in here now, which I'm going to do, is going to be gone. I'm going to start pulling this up on this side because it's higher over here than it is here. And actually here too. No, right there. So I'm going to, because I can see it in the video. So I'm going to start pulling this up, right? And it's going to get thinner because I'm using the clay. And I'm just going to start trying to make this really super even all the way around. Okay. And that's not bad. There's a little bit of a, let's just see. Let's just turn it around and see what we can see. Yeah, there's a little bit right there that's up. So I'm going to try with my X-Acto knife again to kind of take that off. So I'm going to take a deep breath and cut. See how little bit that is? I shouldn't be talking, but it's just a tiny little sliver of a difference that makes your eye kind of see that it's wonky. Oops, sorry. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to get as a human. Okay. Now I'm going to take my little scratchy tool and I'm going to make all my little marks in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to grab a, it's drier around the rim. So this time I really would suggest you use some water. Not too much though. And then I'm going to grab my clay and I'm going to do the same process I did. Don't use the clay that you cut off your thing. Go ahead and get you some new clay off the block. You want it to be pretty wet. You can recycle that other stuff for something else. Okay, and I'm going to put this bowl aside for now, and I'm going to roll this out on my bat. Okay. Okay, I made my snake first, and now I'm just going to roll it out. Now this one's going to have to be really long, okay? So I'm going to have to get a bigger bat to work with. And it can be pretty thin because we don't need a lot of clay. Liz, how am I doing for time?
Well, we're probably coming up on our time limit. So if we have more to cover, I will send out a new invitation to everybody that's on this Zoom call with a continuation of it.
Okay, I should be able to finish up pretty quick. I'm just going to put this put this rim on, and then we can be open for questions.
Liz,
Okay, so
I got a notice on mine that the session was going to be extended.
Yeah, it was it said the host has upgraded this session so it has unlimited time.
Oh, well, that's good. I did a good job then.
You did a great job. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to just see if this kind of fits the rim. And it looks like it's a little bit, it needs to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to go roll this out just a little thinner. And if you're on a board, I don't know if you can see how big my board is, but I'm getting to the place where I can't work on my board because the snake is too long. So I'm just going to roll one part, move it another part. So if you have limitations on your space to work, you can always make it work. I have a big studio, well, it's not big, but bigger, but I used to work in basically a closet, and you learn to really adapt to small spaces. I did literally work in a closet for a little bit right when I got out of school. So, and make sure that your bowls around you, you're not knocking into them with your board. I just almost knocked into that one. So let's just check this out. Okay, I think we can make it work. So I'm going to flatten this out just like we did before with for the feet. Okay, and I'm just going to take the side of my hand and just karate chop it down. And you want to try to make as even pressure as you possibly can, because you're going to put marks in it as as you're chopping into it. And that's okay, because we're going to put those little indents on there, and that kind of takes care of that. A lot of the marks that I make, in all honesty, people think are meant to be decoration, but they're also meant to cover mistakes. And so you can always cover something up with a nice, with a nice little mark or repetition of marks. Okay. Now, if this was me now, this is pretty loose, especially right here where I connected that foot and I added the water, so it's actually a little bit sticky here. I would probably wait if I was at home and I had time, but we're just going to go ahead and work on it. And if it folds, it folds. This is just a demo piece. It's not something that I'm going to worry about. Okay, so I'm going to start laying this on here. Y'all will see. So now the great thing about this rim, see, I'm just laying it on top of there. As long as you score and you add water, you're not going to have to fuss with this like you would a foot, okay? Because, and you can, it's up to you, but the nice thing is okay, there. The nice thing is that if you use the scoring and enough water, this is going to attach itself pretty easily, okay? And when I was pushing this on here, I'm not attaching it. I'm laying it on. So as I'm standing up looking over this, I can kind of shift and move this around in case I don't like the way it looks. And you can also feel underneath here, like whether it's in the middle of your snake or not, whether your rim is in the middle. And I kind of like it to be in the middle. So I'm just kind of lifting this up and adjusting. Excuse me. Okay, and I'm going to do that all the way around before I cut my snake off and attach the two ends together. Okay. All right, so it looks pretty good. So I've still got my snake that needs to be taken off. So again, I'm just going to fold it back like that. And if I can find my needle tool. Again, even though this is such a thin snake, I'm going to cut this at an angle, okay? And then I'm going to pull this over, making sure it's in the middle, and I'm going to cut this at an angle too, like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to attach them like this. Okay, and just gently. Now this is so wet, so I'm really careful what I'm doing with my fingers. That's such a gentle pressure here. Okay, and then all the way around. I'm just going to start to attach it. So I'm doing this, just pressing with my fingers all the way around. For people who make pies, this will be very familiar to you. Okay, so once I've pressed up and back all the way around, and it looks good to me, and the shape of the bowl looks like the way I want it. This one's still a little wonky, but as it dries, I will continue to force it into the shape that I want. Right now, when it's this wet, it springs back when you shape it. So as it starts to dry today, I'm going to keep forcing it into the shape that I want it to be. And then by the time it gets, Parmesan cheese hard, it'll be in the shape that I want it to be. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, just to make sure, I'm going to take my fingers and gently, I'm going to pull up on this rim all the way around and make sure it's stuck. Okay. I keep hitting my pieces. I keep having to move them. Okay. I'm going to make sure it's stuck all the way. So I'm giving it pretty good pressure here. Okay. Pretty good pressure all the way around, pulling up on that rim, making sure that it's not going to separate itself from your bowl. And if you're pulling up pretty hard with a lot of pressure, you can be pretty sure that it's not going to pop off. We're also going to still do just a little bit more work on this. So I'm going to take a sponge. And again, I'm just giving it one squeeze, so it's still, you can see how shiny my hand is. There's still quite a bit of water there. And I'm just going to start wiping this down. Okay, now the rim itself is uneven. And that doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, then what you would do is you would do what I did before with the rim. and you would take a deep breath and you would start to cut this snake into the shape you want it. And there's one spot that I'm not really liking, so I'm going to cut really quick. Just looking for a hand towel to wipe my hand, because you don't want your hands to be wet when you do this, and you also don't want your pot to be sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and really squeeze out a sponge and get that excess water off like that. Okay, and then I'm going to take my needle tool. Actually, I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, I think, because it's a little bit sharper. There's one spot I just don't like, so I'm just going to take a deep breath. And y'all can't see that, so I'll show you. I'm still figuring out this camera, y'all, sorry. Okay, that's better. Okay. And you can kind of do that back and forth as you desire until you get, when you're looking down on your bowl, it looks the way you want it to look. Okay. All right, and then, so now the last thing that we're gonna wanna do, you can choose to use your fingers, or you can use a tool, and we're just gonna make these nice little divots. And again, this is something that hides a problem. And the problem with this bowl is that when I put the snake on, you could see when I karate chopped it, just a little, just very faintly. But if we want this to really look more towards perfect, then you got to hide up those little things. So I decided to make these little divots, and I used a wooden tool, this little guy. And I'm just going to hold with my middle finger and my thumb. I'm going to hold it like as if you were on the wheel and you're pulling up. And I'm just going to run this up and down, up and down, up and down, all the way around. And this hides multitudes of sins. But also, it's a good way to secure your rim a little bit better. So if you were worried that the rim might pop off, this will really make your fears go away, because you're pushing this rim onto the bowl. And as your tool starts to get sticky, just wipe it off. Oh, there we go. And then as the day goes on, like I said, I'm going to keep shaping this and fussing with it so it becomes more, less organic and more real look. Okay, so that's that. I got to see how it's moving and so I'm going to really keep working with this as the day goes on. So, and that's it. So any questions? Go ahead.
Okay, when you're wanting it to dry, do you support it by turning it upside down at all on that balloon, or is it okay to just leave it unsupported?
Well, like I said, I'm going to mess with this throughout the day. So if I noticed that it needed some support, you could do that.
Okay.
And you could just blow up another balloon to rest it on, because you're going to need to pop the first one. The problem with using a bowl, right, is that your pot's going to shrink and the bowl's not. So you would have to find some other sense of support, which you can just ball up a bunch of newspaper and stick your newspaper inside your bowl, or no, probably not work, but you could kind of shape it and tape it and then stick it on a chuck of some kind, and then rest your bowl on top of that.
Okay.
So that would work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
That was great, Leanne. Thanks.
Oh, well, thank you. I had a good time. It's good to see everybody's faces.
Right. That's what I think too. Great to see everyone.
So just to let you all know, that was fantastic, Leanne. I enjoyed it. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yay.
and thanks for everybody for, signing on and working with us through this technological challenge. Now, Patrick's going to do one on tomorrow at 11, and you should have gotten that invitation in the email that I sent. If anybody needs it, shoot me an email, okay? And I'll send it to you again. He's going to do vessels from handmade slabs. And then, yeah, and then we're going to have a fine arts one. It is coming up. We have some challenges technologically where that's concerned. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Liz, so much.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
bye.
you, everybody. Have a great
Bye,
day.
everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
Marianne.
great
Bye.
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 Thanks.
Thank you.